Good afternoon, welcome to my YouTube channel. It's my first video, so I hope you like it. Bear with me, never done this before. What it's all about basically is the world of Doctor Who and everything about Doctor Who. I've grown up watching the programme, and as you can hear the music in the background, it's from the Peter Davison era, which was my era. I started watching when I was about 3-4 years of age, something like that. My earliest memory of Doctor Who was, in fact, Tom Baker regenerating into Peter Davison. And then growing up as a kid when VHS video recorders became readily available, I started collecting and going back through William Hartnell, Troughton, Pertwee and Tom, and then went from there then onto DVD, and now within the 15 years or so of the new series, and obviously the arrival of the first female Doctor, I think we've got a hell of a lot to look forward to in the future as well. But that is another thing to discuss. What I'd like to discuss first is a friend of mine asked me once a while ago. Their little boy has just started getting into Doctor Who in the last year or so, and they were asking me about the classic series and indeed the new series. And as somebody who's watched it and grown up with it, listened to the audios, read the books, basically lived and breathed the programme since I could remember, what stories would I recommend to somebody just getting into the programme? So what I've done, I've made a list of what I think, and this is only my opinion. This isn't anything official. It's nothing to do with any of the polls that you might read in Doctor Who magazine or anything like that. This is just my opinion of what I personally think are the 12 best stories, one from each Doctor. And obviously I'm not going to talk about Jodie Whittaker yet, because we haven't seen her yet. So until such a time as her first story is, then I think we should reserve judgment as to what she's going to be like, but I'm sure she'll be fantastic. And as I briefly touched on earlier, I think the subject, let me just turn that down a little bit. I think the subject of a female Doctor is a episode unto itself, which I will do I will give my thoughts on that in another video. But first, let's get on with this list. So, number one, Mr. William Hartnell. The best story of the William Hartnell era, I think, is, it might seem a bit obvious, a bit cliche, but I do think it's the Dalek invasion of Earth. The reason being is it's one of those stories in the 60s that it's just sort of an atmospheric trip into a dystopian future where we're all but wiped out and the survivors are in slavery, and there's this tiny little, it's a typical let's resist the alien invader story, only it was done in 1963, about 10 years before some of the big 70s Hollywood blockbusters, and that's what I like about it. I like the fact that it was an innovator of a story, and it just brings back really nice memories as well. And also it's the first story where we see a companion, Susan, leave. Does she leave, or does the Doctor kick her out? I don't know. It's a bit 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think he might have had enough of her just moaning and wailing and shouting grandfather every time a bush rustled or a door slammed or something. So anyway, number two, Pat Troughton. Obviously, it's an obvious choice, this one, and I think anybody who didn't pick this as one of the best Troughton stories needs to have their head read. Tomb of the Cybermen. Need I say any more about that? It is an absolute instant classic. What more can we say about it? Everything from start to finish is perfect about Tomb of Cybermen, and probably, the best or one of the best Cybermen stories. On to John Pertwee now. Probably not a choice a lot of people would have made, you know, and you never kind of see it in the top in the polls or anything like that the magazine does. But for me, it's personal. It's a personal story for me because I used to be in the Navy. I spent 6.5 years in the Navy from 1997 to 2003. And yeah, it was 2003. Sorry about that. But it's the Sea Devils, because obviously the Royal Navy play a big part in that story, and it's weird for me because I was in the Navy in the 90s, and this story was filmed and set in the 70s, and it's strange seeing those naval establishments, you know, on television on a program from the 70s, and they haven't changed. They haven't changed one single bit from in 20 odd years. And also it's got the original and the best master in Roger Delgado. Cracking story. Highly recommend that anybody who is just getting into Doctor Who check that one out. Mr. Tom Baker, Doctor number 4, Terror of the Zygons. What more? Set in Scotland. Beautiful soundtrack to it, lovely scenery, first appearance of those shape-shifting, shifty Zygons, and probably the last proper unit story, because I don't think you can count the Android Invasion or Seeds of Doom as a unit story, because the Brigadier's not in them, and a unit story without the Brigadier, I'm sorry, isn't a unit story. So Terror of the Zygons brings a close, and then a sad close, a sad ending for the unit family, who I thought was one of the best periods of Doctor Who, was the whole unit family. Number 5, Earthshock. Well, that couldn't have been timed better. The theme tune from Earthshock has literally just come on the hi-fi. Anyway, Earthshock, it was one of the when I was a kid in the 90s and I was started collecting the VHS videos, Earthshock I think was the first one I bought, and I've just got such nostalgic memories of Earthshock, and I'm not bothered what anybody says. It's the last story with Adric. It kills Adric off, so any story that kills Adric off is a good story, because Adric just no Adric. Go away, Adric. Colin Baker, number 6. I had to... it's a bit of a tough choice here. Not because... Now, don't get me wrong here, because you might think I'm saying it's a tough choice because the Colin Baker era wasn't very well regarded. I personally loved the Colin Baker era. The reason I found it was a bit of a hard choice was I couldn't decide between Vengeance on Varos or the whole of Trial of a Time Lord. But as Trial of a Time Lord technically is 4 separate stories with a bridging narration in between them, I went for Vengeance on Varos. You know, it's a very hard-edged, gritty Doctor Who story that, you know, you had people in the 80s going, Doctor Who's getting too violent. I don't think it was. I was about 8 years old when Vengeance on Varos was first on television, and I don't ever remember thinking, oh, this is a bit violent, you know, it's a bit much, isn't it? You know, as an 8-year-old, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, I thought it was a fantastic period of time for Doctor Who, was the Colin Baker era, and, you know, Colin was a fantastic Doctor. But, again, that's something we can talk about on another video. But just to say, before we move on, I am an advocate of Colin Baker. I think everything he did was marvellous for the show, and still does. Now, Sylvester McCoy. Only one clear winner with this one. My personal favourite Sylvester McCoy story is The Curse of Fenric. Anybody who says, oh, Doctor Who was never any good since Tom Baker left, go and have a look. Yeah, I'm talking about the classic series now. Go and have a look at Curse of Fenric. It will prove you wrong in so many ways. Such an atmospheric, dark story as well, you know, and set in World War II, which is one of the most, you know, turbulent, harrowing periods of time in human history as well. Fantastic story. Unfortunately, Doctor Number 8, Paul McGann, there's only one choice you can pick here, the TV movie. I'm not going to count Night of the Doctor because that's not really a episode. It was a mini-sode done for the, you know, for the 50th anniversary, just a special 7-minute, which was brilliant. You know, it was really, really good to see Paul McGann on screen after all those years. But yeah, the TV movie, it was the only proper outing on television Paul McGann had. But he did do many, many, many brilliant, and still does, many brilliant audio adventures on Big Finish. And if you've not listened to any of those, I highly recommend that you go and check them out. Eccleston, bear with me, we're getting to the end now. Mr. Christopher Eccleston. Empty Child, Doctor Dances. Again, World War II. Some might say there's a bit of a World War II theme, and you can just see behind me up there, there's also a, there is a Dad's Army DVD on my DVD shelf. So there is no World War II fixation here going on, it's just coincidence, I promise you. But again, first story written by Stephen Moffat for the new series. Empty Child, Doctor Dances, fantastic two-part story there. And it also is the introduction of Mr. John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness. What more can we say about that? And sticking with Captain Jack Harkness, my favourite David Tennant story sees the return of him in the 3-part Utopia, Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords, and it also brings the Master back for the first time since the classic season. A different kind of Doctor Who story when I first saw it, especially Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords. I thought it was more of a, obviously because he became the Prime Minister, but it was a very more of a political type of driven story. And David Tennant spends most of Last of the Time Lords as Dobby the house elf before deciding to turn into Jesus and redeem the Master, which isn't possible. I don't know what he was thinking there. You know, you can't redeem the Master. The Master's the Master. It's as simple as that. You know. Anyway, number 11. I loved the 11th Hour. It's as simple as that. The 11th Hour, I think, was one of the best debut stories for a Doctor. It was fantastic from start to finish, and you know, Matt Smith, all credit to him. You know, I think he had a mammoth task in replacing David Tennant, who at the time was probably you know, the most popular Doctor we've ever had. You know, so anybody who, I think Matt Smith could be compared to Peter Davison in that respect. You know, they both had the job of replacing the most popular Doctor at that time. And I think Matt Smith did absolutely incredibly well in his first story. You know, it was just a thrill ride from start to finish. And Peter Capaldi, I'd just like to say, I had the pleasure of meeting Peter Capaldi when they were filming Series 8. In my hometown of Porthcawl, which is just about 30 miles away from Cardiff, where the show is made. And what a lovely bloke Peter is, and I just, you know, remember meeting him. You know, it was a freezing cold January evening on the coast, and the episode they were filming was a Listen, and it was the bit where they went into the children's home. And you know, it was the end of filming, end of the day's filming. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and you know, if I was Peter, all I'd want to do is get in my car and go back to my house and go to bed. But no, he stopped. He stopped to speak to people. He was brilliant. He's a really lovely bloke. I'd just like to say that. But my favourite Peter Capaldi story, wasn't too keen on it when I first saw it, but after a couple of views it really started to grow on me, and it's Heaven Sent and Hell Bent. And I just really, I mean, the atmospheric, you know, just, you know, nobody's ever done a Doctor Who story like Heaven Sent before. I'm getting lost for words to try and describe it, but it was just, you know, just one actor in it, Peter Capaldi, and that thing, you know, chasing him around wherever it was, and you know, he pulled it off majestically, you know, and it was such a unique story. And then to go from that, you know, crashing, literally punching your way into Gallifrey, to confront Barusa and the Time Lords, and then, you know, all in order to try and bring Clara back from the dead. I thought it was a great way to end that season, who a lot of people didn't, you know, there was a lot of feedback about that season, that it wasn't that great, and, you know, but in hindsight, I think it was. You know, I think we had some really good stories in that season, you know, and the majority of them were two-parters. And yeah, I can't remember who wrote it, but I think the only story in season 9, which wasn't that good, was that one where I forget what it's called now, but that one where they were all on video cam, and the Sandman or the Sand Monster or whatever it was on the spaceship. Bear with me, I'll find out what it's called. It's not very professional of me not knowing what it's called. Sleep No More, that's what it's called. I've just found out on here. And it's my Doctor Who cup here. I'm going to have a swig of tea. Anyway, those are my 12 recommendations for anybody, any little one or any adult who's first getting into Doctor Who. They're my 12 recommendations for the best story of each Doctor. Hope you've enjoyed my video. I'll be back sometime soon in the near future, and we'll talk more on the casting of the first female Doctor. And the reason I've waited a while for that, because it's been a good few months now since it was revealed. That's exactly why I've waited. I wanted to wait for all the, you know, the fuss to calm down, positive and negative, so then I can talk about it with my own opinion and take it from there, really. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll see you again.